Today I will be presenting on the professional standards for student conduct programs in higher education. There are many reasons to have a good conduct program at a higher education institution, but as the CAS Professional Standards for Higher Education book states, student conduct programs should develop and enforce standards of conduct and create an educational endeavor to foster students' learning and development. One of the purposes for the conduct program would be to develop standards. The program must determine what standards should be held at the institution and how they must be explained to students. They must make sure that the standards are clearly accessible to all students and that these standards of behavior are being upheld. The conduct program is also responsible for enforcement. They must determine the process for determining whether a conduct issue has happened, as well as the hearing process and the discipline for breaking a rule. And finally, the conduct program is also responsible for education of the entire institution. It is important that the conduct program educate both the staff and faculty, as well as the students, about all school policies, as well as the consequences that would happen should they break policy. They should turn essentially every conduct issue into a learning experience for all those involved. There are many standards out there for how a conduct program should work, but I researched those as told by the CAS, the ASCA, and then did some research into what it looks like at the University of Minnesota. The CAS is the Council for Advancement of Standards in Higher Education. The CAS states that a good conduct program should have a mission. It is important for this conduct program to relate their mission back to the institution's mission and for their mission to be consistent with the goals of the program. A good conduct program is also focused on education through all of the procedures that they do, whether that be hearings, discipline, etc. The program should have a sense of authority, as well as determine who is a part of the hearing board, and also ensure that their information is accurately depicted to all of those involved on campus. A good conduct board also raises up leaders within the program, and these leaders display the accurate way to uphold these conduct standards throughout the institution. A conduct program should also make good use of the human resources that they have, whether that be professional or student staff or even volunteers. Each must be properly trained and selected very carefully so that each person who is working for or volunteering for the conduct program is upholding the program's mission. A conduct program must have an idea of ethical behavior and must uphold ethical behavior at all times. It's important for the conduct program to uphold confidentiality and for conflicts of interest to be avoided. The conduct program should be aware of their legal responsibilities and should educate their staff and volunteers of legal responsibilities as well. A conduct program should not be discriminatory and should be equitable for those regardless of age, gender, background, sexuality, etc. The program should create a location that encourages diversity and treats all equally. A conduct program should have a set organization. The structure must be thoroughly laid out in terms of who handles what and the order in which items happen. Conduct programs should have good relationships with other people on campus and other departments on campus, as well as certain organizations externally, such as possibly the police department. The program should have standards for how they communicate with these different organizations as well. A good conduct program should have access to the necessary finances as well as modern technology. The program should have enough funding to make sure that they are able to uphold their mission and should have access to any technology that is necessary to complete that mission in a good manner. A good conduct program should also make sure that they have access to good facilities and equipment. The location must be adequate for staff members to be able to get their work done and must meet the needs of privacy. A conduct program should also be assessed, whether that be self-assessment or outside. The program should be regularly evaluated and determined whether it is meeting the needs of the institution, whether it's meeting its mission and the mission of the institution that it is a part of. The ASCA is the Association for Student Conduct Administration. The ASCA states that conduct programs should be aware of autonomy. Everybody has the freedom to choose their own decision, to make their own decision. However, they must pay attention to whether their decisions are hindering the freedom of others. A conduct program should uphold non-malfeasance. In other words, if they must decide between not causing someone harm and providing someone benefit, they must choose to not provide someone harm. Conduct programs should also uphold beneficence. They must cause good to others as much as possible, must be generous and kind, and create a positive atmosphere. The conduct program must focus on justice. They must treat everybody equally unless differences are relevant. They must be fair and must also handle discipline correctly when standards are not upheld. And a conduct program should uphold the ideal of fidelity. The conduct program and those involved in it should have the trust of students, staff, and faculty at the institution and need to work to maintain that trust. The University of Minnesota, I looked into what the office and the staff are, as well as how they handle conduct problems at the university. The name of their office is the Office for Community Standards, and it is made up of the director, the associate director, the student conduct coordinator, and then finally the executive office and administrative specialist. The University of Minnesota's conduct program focuses on achievement and integrity, violence and intimidation-free community, respect towards everyone's rights, stewardship and protection of resources, upholding state and federal law while also setting their own standards, orderly and rational conflict resolution, and due process and fairness. At the University of Minnesota, the conduct process begins when the office sends a student in question an email to set up an appointment. The student then meets informally with a member of the office to talk through the offense. The office might also interview witnesses if need be. Students are in general held responsible for a violation if they are more likely than not to have committed that violation. In other words, they are not innocent until proven guilty. The office will then send out a resolution to the student, and if the student does not agree with the resolution, they can appeal for a hearing. The hearing will go before one of two committees, either the Campus Committee on Student Behavior or the Student Sexual Misconduct Subcommittee. The student will have access to an advocate through a program that the university provides, the Student Advocate Service. The hearing would consist of a pre-hearing conference, a standard hearing, panel deliberations and decisions, and then a possible appeal. At the end of the hearing process, an outcome would have been determined and proper disciplinary action would have been taken. There are many job titles as well as activities that can fall under those who work in student conduct programs. As discovered on the ASCA's website, certain job titles can be as follows: Associate Director for Sexual and Interpersonal Misconduct and Cross-Examination, Assistant Director for Community Standards and Restorative Practices, Assistant Director for Community Standards, Assistant Director for Conflict Resolution, Student Resolution Center Specialist, Student Conduct Coordinator. Activities include the following, but may include more or not all of these. In general, you must provide educational opportunities for students to grow in resolution skills as well as learn from their conduct issues. They would also, in general, maintain records and establish the codes of conduct. They would train all staff and volunteers, review the local laws and regulations to make sure that their program is in compliance with them, create a safe environment on campus, conduct the investigations, the hearings, and determine the outcome, as well as review conduct reports. In conclusion, The CAS and the ASCA have a number of standards that should be upheld by all conduct programs. The University of Minnesota upholds these standards through their conduct program and has a set hearing process that meets these standards.